theme this month is faith. My topic today is moving mountains. And I'm so glad, Robbie, that you were listening. Listen, we don't have a supply problem, really, in this world. It's a distribution problem. There's enough. There's enough energy on this planet to do everything that we need to do if we have the willingness to harness it and to distribute it. There's really enough food. We're wasting stuff. There's enough. There's enough clothes. There's really no need for anybody to be starving. There's really no need. For that matter, there's enough medication. There's enough. What we lack is the will to distribute. We lack the will for the equity, the faith that moves mountains. One of the most famous stories in the Bible is the feeding of the 5,000. And you can tell just how important things are in Scripture by how many times it shows up. And that's the only story that shows up in every book of the gospel: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And if I had a little bit more AV props, I'd like to take you right into it because it's such a beautiful story. And in this story, it talks about how there's this multitude, and metaphysically speaking, the multitude always represents the hungry thoughts. And it even says that it's like 5,000 men, but there's who knows how many, because they were only counting within this sort of thing like the men. And they're in this particular place. It's this desert place, and Jesus is talking to them, and it starts to get late into the evening. And the disciples, which represent our faculties of our mind, like love and judgment and power and strength and courage and all this stuff, faith, they're telling Jesus, you need to let the people go because, they're going to get hungry. It isn't like they got restaurants just hanging around all over the place. And Jesus, it even says that he's saying this to prove them. He's testing his own powers. He's testing his own disciples. He says, how are you going to feed the people? What are you going to do? Like, well, what are we supposed to do? The first one he poses the question to is his disciple Philip, which represents power represented in the chakra of the tongue, the root of the tongue. And he declares, we only have so much money. Like, what is that? That's not enough. Not enough. It's okay. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So Andrew, who represents strength, and Andrew is the brother of faith, Peter. Strength and faith are brothers. Strength and faith go together. He says, hey, we've got this lad here. I'm not going to go into the whole story. And he has like a couple of fish, and he's got these few loaves. He says, bring that to me. He says, and he blesses it, tells them, sit everybody down in these groups of 50, and he tells the disciples, feed them. And at the end, there was more left than what they started off with. There were 12 baskets at the end. Story never tells you where this food comes from. It never answers that question. But interestingly enough, Andrew, just like Philip, when he had this young lad who had this small amount here, he says the same thing. It's not enough. It's not enough. What are we going to do with this? Listen to what I'm saying. Okay? Jesus never pulled a rabbit out of a hat. Listen to what I'm saying. Energy is always transformed. You always start with something. And then that something shifts and changes. You know what I'm saying? You always start with something. and you create out of that something, and that something shifts and changes. But if you declare the something that you have to be nothing, then you don't have something to work with. If you declare the something that you have to be nothing, then you have nothing to work with. I don't care whether this is health in your body. I don't care whether this is about your relationships. I don't care whether this is about your finances. I don't care whether this is about national governance. We have to watch what we declare. See, whatever you declare, it is so for you. Your experience is not the things that are going on, it's how you name it. It's how you name it. That's what makes it your experience. I am clearer than a bell on this, particularly in my own life, and especially since last Thursday when we graduated another 50 men out of our prison outreach program. Unbelievable. And at least 10 or 12 of them spoke. And oh my God, the shift in their awareness, the shift in their perspectives. And the one thing that absolutely all of them spoke about was the tool of forgiveness that we gave them, and what the self-forgiveness meant, and what it meant to be up under the yoke of that burden, and to see. Your experience is not what happens, but how you name what happens. Any recovery program, any therapy program is all about renaming. You can't unring the bell. You can't bring daddy back who left the house. You can't do it. You can't have your kids, your adult children, go back to 5 years old so you can parent them like you should have. Don't you wish? You can't do it. The bottles of booze that you drank every day for years, you can't take that out of your system now. You can't unring the bell. But you do get to determine what happens from here. See, spring can't undo the forest fires that we had in the summer. Spring can't undo the winter, but spring will work with whatever is there now. There's always something to work with. So in these parables, in true Middle Eastern and Eastern fashion, male represents the intellectual, rational part. Female represents the inner realm, the more emotional, feeling realm. Okay? So this instruction that Jesus is giving is to the mind. It's to that thinking part of you. Figure it out. Look at what you've got. Bless what you have. And a young lad, that part of the intellect that isn't jaded, that isn't stuck in the not enoughness, says, hey, I've got this. And I love the interpretation that George Lamza puts on this, who happened to be someone in the 20th century who spoke Aramaic as his native language, the language that Jesus spoke. Only about 250,000 people in the world still speak that language. He grew up in the hills of Turkey so far up that they grew up as Jews who thought the Messiah had come. They were still doing the same customs thousands of years later. And he went through the whole Bible. It said there are about 2,500 mistakes in there in terms of interpretation. And he did this extraordinary, funded by some of the big ones like Kellogg and Carnegie. They gave him the money to do a Bible that took it from more ancient, the Peshitta, skip Latin, skip Greek, skip all these other things, straight into modern English. And what he said is that the people had it all along. That was the custom of the day. You never, ever, ever left the house without your fish and without your bread. You just didn't do it. because there was no place to buy it. He said, but it was the custom not to share. Everybody was stingy with it. He says, but how the women would make the cross on it to say, like, this is good bread. This is good bread. And that the women who were known for providing enough all the time were thought of to be like really tapped into the source. And he said that during the day, and is this not true, that turning stingy people into givers was considered a miracle. Turning stingy people into givers was considered a miracle. He says they were more likely to share on their way back. We all have it. I want you to really hear what I'm saying. We have it. All of the stuff that we think we don't have, we have. It's just a question, will we cultivate it? Will we let it out? The world needs more oneness, yes? What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing there's just too little of. It's true. But where is it? It's in us. Will we let it show? There's really no reason for people to be homeless. There's really not. I was telling this story not too long ago of Susie Herrera in our congregation, who has this beautiful book, Mango Elephants in the Sun, which is about her Peace Corps days in Cameroon, Africa. And where she was, everybody thought that Americans were extremely wealthy. And she was trying to explain, no, not everybody in America is wealthy, and she was trying to use the example of homelessness to prove this. They couldn't get it. They could not wrap their brains around the concept of homelessness. They were like, well, aren't there people in the village who have homes? Yes? Well, if there are people in the village who have homes, how can you have people like out in the yard? Like, if there are homes. I mean, homelessness was not anywhere in the psyche. Are you with me? Because they didn't get it. That's part of what happened with the native population here and getting so duped all the time by the U.S. government. Because the idea of owning land, of owning the earth, of actually being able to say this part of the planet like belongs to me. There was just no, there was just no place for that to fit. Because of course you share the planet. And they got it. Whether they were in the mountains, whether they were in the deserts, whether they were tribes by the ocean, all of the Americas lived in such harmony, they didn't even leave traces of themselves. In such harmony, they didn't leave economic debris. They didn't leave broken down cities and stone and all this kind of, this is mine. Even in their labyrinths, in their medicine wheels, they're wiping their steps away as they move to make sure that everything is left pristine for the next one. We started to incorporate that practice in inner life. Before we moved here, we were about 6 years or so at the Veterans Building downtown. Our first year, we were at the Capitola Community Center. And that part of me that's stuck in it's in mine, would get very frustrated because every week, well, we weren't every week originally, we were every other week, and then we went to every week. We had to do Schleppenhall. Had to bring absolutely everything in. Everything. Water, children's toys, sound system, all of that. Set it all up. And usually we would have to clean up beforehand because they often had raves there and beer bottles in the piano thing. I'm serious. It was a mess. So we'd have to clean it up, set it up, and then we'd have to break it down before we left. And I remember how frustrated I used to get, feeling like we couldn't get any synergies, and there was something about my ego self saying to me, we are erasing any evidence that we've been here. And I'm wanting to build on the energy, and build on the energy. We bring it, and Spirit just whooped my butt one day and just got me in alignment and showed me nature. This is community space. Think of it like the ocean. Think of it like the park, the beach. If you were to come and you were to set up on the ocean, in the park, you'd set your stuff up, and then you would take it away. You would take it away so that the next group could enjoy it, yes? So we started doing this ritual that we would do in the beginning of quote-unquote praying in and setting sacred space. We would do it at the end as well to close out and to honor that space. We still do that ritual. If you are here in the beginning of service, before we start meditation, we are in the social hall and we are setting the sacred space. And at the end, even though we're not going to Schleppenhall and take everything away, but that consciousness of sealing it, that consciousness of taking the consciousness and multiplying it, that consciousness of being aware that, yes, something happened here, and now we're releasing that for whatever next is to happen here. We still do it. Happens at 1 o'clock. And anybody around, welcome to participate in that. We have it. We have it. We have it. The flea market that we do in August is not just about a flea market, but it is to demonstrate this. We really don't need to keep making more stuff. Whatever stuff you want is already out there. I don't care what it is. You're having a baby, you're a grandbaby. There's stuff. There's blankets that are already out there. There are cribs or whatnot that are already out there. There's stuff. There's vacuum cleaners and whatever the stuff is we think we need, it's there. Even in our plant section, we have people starting to cut plants now to do the little seedlings because there's enough. If we just start replanting what we have, are you with me? The faith that moves mountains. So what Jesus said in Scripture, that if you have faith, you can say to this mountain, move, and it shall be cast into the sea. That word move that's being used there says it's a change of form or condition. A change of form or condition. We're the ones that name it a mountain or not. Listen to what I'm saying. We're the ones that say whether it's a mountain or not. Stuff just is. But is it a mountain? Now, for somebody, being alone for 3 days with a pair of 3-year-old twins is a mountain. For somebody, caring for an aging, dying parent is a mountain. For somebody else, that's sacred rite of passage. That's an honor and a privilege to be with them at that moment. For somebody, it's a joy and a delight to be in the mystery and the magic of 3-year-olds that are unfiltered, unbridled energy and joy. You get to name what it is. Life's rejection is often God's protection. But you get to name what that is. Stuff leaves, stuff goes, you don't get it. We can just cry, or we can say, ooh, thank you, God, for having my back. Woo! I don't mean to be cold when I say this, but have any of you been, quote unquote, left before? Or pushed out of something, a relationship, a job, a house, or whatever? And don't you want to send them roses now? Don't you just want to send roses? And you look back and think, oh my God, I could have still been there. I could have still been in that relationship. I could have still been living there. I could have still been working there. Oh! Am I right? There was something that got left out in the reading. I want to share it. So this reading is from the Sacred Yes. These are these downloads that I get from Spirit, and they're, some of them are in a series called Letters from the Infinite. And this is the end part of the letter called Faith from the Sacred Yes. It says, when you exercise faith, you are minding your mind. You are taking all of your creative energy and potential and directing it toward a purpose that not only is for good, but also in alignment with divine order. Listen to that. In faith, you are using your energy. It's not some passive something where you're just waiting around to see what's going to happen to you. You are using your energy to direct it toward a purpose that you know is good and in alignment with divine order. When you are exercising your faith, you become aware that all of the worry, anxiety, fear, doubt, lack, and limited thinking is working against you. You become aware that those thoughts are acutely counterproductive. They are not just neutral. They are not just static, but that your so-called negative thinking has power as well. Listen to that. Everything is energy. Everything is power. When you are exercising faith, you are conscious of the fact that you have power. Even though you may not know what like. You know the energy of doubt. You know the energy of fear. You know the energy of lack and limitation and worry. You know what that feels like. And you know when you are fueling it with your thoughts. So exercising faith is the choice that says, I'm not going to do that. I don't have to know what it's going to look like on the other end. Like it says in these letters, you don't have to know where you're going to know you're headed in the right direction. You redirect your energy towards the positive. You redirect your energy towards divine order. I don't have to know what divine order looks like to claim it. How many of you raise kids? You don't know how they're going to turn out. You don't know what kind of careers they're going to have or partners they're going to choose. You don't know you don't know all that. And you don't have to. In fact, if you were to try to predetermine exactly what it was going to look like, you would squelch the child. You just claim divine order. You just claim right action. That whatever it is, they're going to be healthy and whole and happy, whatever that looks like. And it's no more silly to do that in life than it is to do it raising children, because that's how it is. That's how it is. You don't have to know the specifics. So what we do in life is say, well, I'm not really sure what to pray for because I'm not sure what's the right thing. So I'm just going to sit here and worry because I don't know if there's a right thing. That'll be saying to our children, well, I'm not really sure how this turkey's going to turn out. And, I don't really know what they want. And I'm not really sure, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit here passively and let them grow like a weed. No. You use your energy to create the environment for growth, for empowerment. You do that. It says, in those moments of exercising your deep faith, you become acutely aware that you have choice. You have choice. And a lot of times we think we're backed into circumstances in which we don't have choice. But the first choice that you have is not to perceive it that way. That's your first choice. Your first choice is to see yourself not stuck. Your first choice is to recognize that there's an awesome power that is creating, that I can tap into that. It says at that moment of choice, when you were exercising faith, you were choosing the Most High. You were choosing to work with what is. You were choosing to bless what is. Like the story of the feeding of the 5,000. Just take whatever it is that you have and bless that. You know that there is energy in your blessing that elevates the energy at hand, allowing all things to move to a higher vibratory pattern. Your blessing increases the vibratory pattern. I don't care whether it's love or water. Water. You bless water, and the properties of water become medicinal. Hence, holy water. It's true. You bless your food, you bless your body, and your body can receive from that food the nutrients that technically are not in it. I think people have been surviving all over the planet for millennia. In environments where they didn't have the fresh fruits or vegetables for months on end, or they didn't have this or they didn't have that, because they blessed what they did have. and allowed it to satisfy what needed to happen. When you are exercising faith, you are not just waiting for something outside to intervene. You were standing tall and knowing that you have the power to make the difference. You have the power to make the difference. Dare to believe. Dare to stand in something that's bigger or taller than the facts. You don't have to know where the supply is going to come from. You don't have to know. All you have to do is believe. If it doesn't go through, a lot of times we think that the death certificate is lack, but it's doubt. Your doubt kills more than lack. Listen to what I just said. Your doubt kills more than lack. And now in this political climate and environment, it is not the time to get into doubt and fear. Now is the time to stand firmly in a sense of faith that divine order reigns supreme. That there are opportunities for healing now. There are opportunities for growth now. There is an awakening that is happening where people are starting to feel more empowered. Yes? And to know that that can keep rolling on. There are new configurations that are happening now. There are new collaborations that are happening now. Don't just see the divide. I am amazed at the way that there's more partisan stuff happening than I've seen in decades. In decades. Because we're standing in the possibilities. I don't care what it is, whether it's you, whether it's your spiritual community, whether it's your home. Now is not the time to get into fear. Every vision comes with a perfect provision. Every vision comes with a perfect provision. Every divine idea comes with its own supply. You are not given the divine ideas and then it being put on your back to make it happen. And I am preaching to myself now. I am. Right now. Standing deeper and deeper in my faith. And taking that egoic burden off my back to feel like somehow or another it's up to me to make inner light work. I'm doing the best I can. And it's loaves and fishes time. It's like, I got everything I got out there, blessing it and sharing it. And it's loaves and fishes time. It's time for everybody else to take whatever it is they have, bless it, and know at the end we have more than what we started with. 12, the number of completion. Let's breathe.